Hey everyone, welcome. Today we're diving into the incredible history of Vietnam. And it's a story that isn't really about conquest or defeat. It's about something else entirely, a truly unconquerable spirit of resilience that's been forged over thousands of years.
So that really brings us to the central question we're tackling today. How does a nation survive 1,000 years of occupation, then a century of colonialism, and then 30 years of devastating war, and somehow come out stronger on the other side? It's really a masterclass in resilience, a story of a people who just refused to be broken. So yeah, how did they do it?
All right, to figure that out, we're going to journey through 6 key periods. We'll start with its ancient roots and take it all the way up to its incredible rise as a modern economic powerhouse. Let's get right into it. Okay, first up, we're heading way back in time, back to the very foundations, to the prehistoric people and the cultures that first called this land home.
So what's so fascinating here is how these very early foundations were laid. You've got hunter-gatherers showing up, sure, but the real game changer, that happens around 2000 BCE with wet rice farming. And this is so much more than just food, you guys. It's the bedrock of the entire civilization. It forces people to work together, to cooperate. And from that, you get these incredibly sophisticated societies, like the famous Dong Son culture, with their intricate bronze work, which eventually leads to the very first unified kingdom, Alak.
All right, next up is a period that honestly probably defines Vietnam's character more than any other. We're talking about 1,000 years under Chinese rule. But here's the twist. This wasn't just a time of being occupied. It was more like a crucible, a time when a fiercely independent Vietnamese identity was actually forged, not by giving in, but through nonstop resistance.
And this right here just shows you that spirit in action. For centuries, the resistance just never died. You have these incredible leaders who are now national heroes, like the Trunk Sisters and Lady Trio. And these weren't just random one-off revolts. No, this was a continuous struggle that finally came to a head in 938 CE. That's when General No Quyen pulled off this absolutely brilliant naval victory on the Bac Deng River. Finally, ending 1,000 years of direct foreign rule. Just incredible.
So, after winning their independence, Vietnam enters this incredible golden age. You've got the Le dynasty setting up a stable state with its capital where Hanoi is today. And then you get the Trun dynasty, who did something almost nobody else could do. They defeated not 1, not 2, but 3 separate Mongol invasions in the 13th century. Just think about that for a second. After them, the Le dynasty kept the momentum going, kicking out new occupiers and pushing the nation's borders southward.
But here's the thing. Even as the nation was getting bigger, it was also starting to break apart from the inside. The next era we're looking at is all about internal conflict, a deep, long civil war that would literally split the country in two for almost 200 years.
And here you can see how it played out. The country splits into these 2 rival powers. You've got the Trent lords in the north and the Nguyen lords in the south. And what's so important to get here is that this wasn't just a political squabble. It created this deep division, a real north-south split with different cultures and even different foreign powers backing them. It's a historical fault line that, tragically, is going to reappear centuries later with devastating consequences.
So yeah, this 200-year split, it wasn't just some historical footnote. It became a really core part of the national story, and it absolutely set the stage for the conflicts that were still to come.
So just when Vietnam is finally put back together again, a totally new chapter of foreign intervention kicks off. A new power arrives, this time from the West, the French.
And this timeline really shows you just how methodical the French conquest was. It all leads to the creation of French Indochina, which lumps Vietnam in with what we now know as Laos and Cambodia. And this is a theme you've probably picked up on by now, conquest breeds resistance, always. Early revolts got crushed, for sure, but they paved the way for a much more organized movement, the Viet Minh, which was formed in 1941 by Ho Chi Minh.
And this sets the stage for what is without a doubt the most brutal and violent period in Vietnam's modern history. A 30-year-long struggle for independence and reunification that's going to pull in the world's biggest superpowers.
And here we go again. It's that same pattern of division. After the Vietnamese defeat the French in 1954, the country gets split in half at the 17th parallel. You get the North backed by the Soviets and China, and the South backed by the United States and its allies. That old North-South fault line we talked about? It was back, but this time it was playing out on the massive stage of the Cold War.
Before we go any further, we just have to pause on this number for a second. The human cost here was just staggering.
Estimates vary, of course, but the high end suggest up to 3.8 million people lost their lives. That's just an immense, devastating price to pay for the goal of reunification.
So this is basically the final chapter, broken down. It all starts with the French being defeated. Then it escalates into a full-blown war with the United States. And even after the American troops pull out in '73, the fighting doesn't stop. The war finally comes to an end on April 30th, 1975, when North Vietnamese tanks rolled into Saigon and the country was finally reunified under a single flag.
But reunification, that wasn't the end of the story. It was the start of a whole new, really difficult chapter. The country was just devastated. It was isolated. It was poor. But you know, from those ashes, Vietnam was about to stage one of the most incredible economic comebacks of the entire 20th century.
The big turning point came in 1986 with a policy called Doi Moi, which basically means renovation. And that's exactly what it was. It was a super pragmatic decision to ditch the rigid, centrally planned economy and start embracing market principles. Open the doors to the world. It was a revolution, all right? But this time, it was a revolution of economics, not of guns.
And wow, this chart right here just says it all, doesn't it? The economic growth since that policy change has been nothing short of explosive. We're talking about going from one of the poorest nations on the planet to a powerhouse middle-income economy, all within a single generation. A true economic dragon.
So let's circle all the way back to that question we asked at the beginning. How did Vietnam do it? How did it endure all of that and come out stronger? Well, the answer seems to be woven into every single part of its history. Its very identity was forged in the struggle. Resilience wasn't just some nice-to-have trait. It became the absolute core of the national character, sharpened over thousands of years of resistance, division, and, finally, renewal.
Hey, if you enjoyed this quick dive into Vietnam's history, you should definitely check out our Quick Country Histories playlist for more stories like this. And of course, make sure to subscribe to Notebook Summaries so you don't miss what's coming up next. Thanks so much for watching.